everyone. Hello there.
Hello, welcome.
I feel like my hair needs spruce.
Welcome to Force of Light Entertainment.
Yeah, you know what it is. It's the Weekly Roundup.
Thanks for stopping by as well.
You're already thanking them for stopping by?
I like to thank them in the beginning and the end.
You're already thanking them? Well, let's go ahead and get hellos, our greetings and salutations to you all. We have an awesome guest that's going to be joining us in just a few minutes. But let's say hello to the one and the only Cher Bear. Nice to see you. And she's already saying hello to Kamran, who will be on in just a moment. TD, nice to see you, TD.
Hello.
Hey, Al TD. From LA, nice to see you as well.
Hey there, buddy.
Griffin, good to see you, Griffin. Brett, oops, I hit TD. Brett, good to see you. Let's see. JS, Pena, always nice to see you. Phil.
Evening, gentlemen.
Yes, Phil, nice to see you. Nicole, our dear friend.
Hello, Nicole.
Nice to see you. I don't know why this is not moving all the way here. Having a technical... You guys, I got an email apologizing from StreamYard over that issue last week. It was something just like they had an issue on the whole site.
Oh, because we were having technical difficulties.
Yes.
Start.
Yeah, it was off, but they apologized and said that they worked to fix it.
StreamYard had one job.
They were not ready. Zachariah, howdy to you as well. Hello. And there's our guest. We're gonna be bringing him out in just a second. And Marcos, our awesome moderator. Shane, nice to see you. Nice to see you. And I'm sure more will come in. Well, guys, and the Cigar Gangster. Let's see.
I like that name.
Any show with Cameron appears on is automatically better. Yeah, I mean, he brings...
You're not wrong.
He brings a lot of entertainment, I would say, to these shows and knowledge.
I see him smiling backstage.
He likes it. But guys, we are here, which it just kind of worked out with Cameron's schedule for him to be here the week of the disastrous.
What a great week to have him.
Yeah, the disastrous the disastrous Oscars that we got. Wow, we got a special Oscars. I wasn't expecting to be talking about the Oscars, to be frank here. Because
they really revived the Oscars.
They revived the national interest in the Oscars. And not for the reasons I think they would have liked to revive those interests, but they did. And yeah, we have a pretty great guest to discuss that here in a second. And Keely, nice to see you as well.
Hey, girl.
I don't know why, but our on StreamYard, it's not moving. The comments, they're kind of slow, guys. If I'm a little delayed, it seems to be yet again StreamYard, another issue.
Come on, StreamYard.
But but nice to see you. So yeah, those comments are coming a little slow. But we will go ahead and bring out our guest. He has been on our channel now. This will be his third time on our channel.
It's getting to be a favorite around here.
He is the one and the only Kamran. What's up?
Hey, lovely ladies. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah. Oh, we got this cool sort of very Tron-like, background. I like it.
It is Tron. It. Do you know I've never seen Tron?
The original or the sequel or the
neither.
Well, I wrote the animated series for Disney until they fired me. But you should watch that too.
That's right. Do you like the original? Are you an original guy? I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, I was 12 when the original came out, and it was at the time it was revolutionary special effects. I mean, going into a video game was at the time we had our video games were Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, right? And the idea of actually going into a video game and experiencing life inside of a video game, that was every kid's fantasy. All right. And, and we actually got to see that happen. They had this incredible, for the 80s, incredible special effects that advanced the technology forward. And then the sequel was a lot of fun. And that also introduced new technology because in the sequel, Jeff Bridges, who was in the original movie, he comes back, but they used de-aging technology that had never been used before. So now we're kind of used to this de-aging technology that was used in the Tron, legacy movie that was a sequel. And then Tron animated show that I did was tied to the sequel. It's actually a prequel to the sequel. It's set just before that movie. So we find out what happened that led to that movie.
And Cameron, I know you've said it before, but what led to you getting fired on that show? That was Disney, right?
Yeah, it was Disney, and it was on Disney XD, and now you can actually
Okay.
on Disney Plus. It's actually available now. 10 years later, it's getting this whole renaissance where people watching the show, and I'm getting emails like, "Hey, you wrote this thing; it's really good." But yeah, so it was Disney, and I was hired to come on board, and I was told I was going to be the showrunner, so I was very excited, and I put together my writing team, only to discover essentially within 24 hours that I was not to be the showrunner of the show. I was going to be essentially a functionary for the the anime. In the way it works in Disney in particular, the animation director is in charge, right? And that wasn't what I had been sold. I sold, you're the showrunner, which is a reason a lot of other people turned the gig down, because they kind of knew what they were walking into, and I didn't. I walked into it, and then suddenly I was like, oh, I'm not the. I thought I'm not the boss. Okay, well, I guess I signed my contract without knowing that. Okay, whatever. So here we go, and I went ahead and made the show that I wanted to make, but there were, let's just say, a lot of personality conflicts. I'll give you insight, which will help you understand why I got fired. The very first day I showed up, put my writing room together, because we were on the Disney lot inside one of the animation buildings, and the executives were just down the hall. So we all the executives showed, talked about it, presented the ideas I had for the show, all that stuff. Everything's great. And so at the end of the day, I'm very excited. I'm like my first big, leadership role, even though I wasn't really the showrunner. And then one of the executives, very lovely lady, said, hey, let's do an end of day, first day review. Come into my office. In her office, she closed the door. She's like, so you come across as a very authentic, honest, straightforward person. That's not going to help you here. I mean, already people are saying this guy's playing the nice guy card. What's his angle, right? And so already people are talking about you, like, what's your angle? I'm like, no, this is actually who I am. She's like, no, I believe that. But the problem is nobody around you is.
Yeah.
So everyone's got an angle there, right? Disney is an infamously Machiavellian, place within an infamously Machiavellian industry. When I got the job, my lawyer called me and said, be careful over there. It's not an easy place. And I was like, well, I've worked at Warner Brothers, I've worked at Universal, I've worked at Paramount. I was like, yeah, that's kids play. You're going into a lion's den. That's what he said to me. And I learned that.
So would you say Disney is like the most difficult studio?
It is. In fact, just today I was talking to my lawyer about something else. This is 10 years later. He's like, I just had to do this deal with Disney, and they're always a nightmare. Well, I mean, that's the one place my lawyer, who's been doing this for 30 years, right? He used to actually be a studio executive at Universal before he went to law school and became an entertainment lawyer. And he's like, I hate dealing with Disney because it's the most complicated, bizarro, Machiavellian place. And we're seeing a lot of that play out.
Yes, we're about to. Our first story we're going to cover actually deals with Disney. And thank you, Deranged Lunatic, for the 99-cent super sticker.
Thank you.
We appreciate that very much. And I want to pull up. Nicole had a good comment, and then we'll get into what I was going to discuss with Disney. The Oscars, for the most part, was boring. 4 unnecessary monologues, COVID pat downs. Yeah, it's like the COVID pat downs and things. I mean, I think and I just saw that briefly. It just shows like how out of touch they are with, like, guys, it's 2022. Like, no one in America, like in middle America, is doing COVID pat downs. Like,
and that's all internal PR, because nobody in Hollywood actually believes this is a life-threatening situation anymore. They did for a while. They don't believe that. They got to play along with the image. It's all virtue signaling. And it's not even, it's literally for that small percentage of the audience that will write angry emails and letters if they don't see something, right, that shows how terrified they are. But that's a very small percentage of the audience, but they got a virtue signal to them.
Well, yeah, yes, and what we're about to get into, they're addressing things for, yet again, like you just said, a small percent of society. And thank you, Leland, for the $2 super sticker.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
that. But yes, I will go ahead and let me pull this up, Cameron. I'm sure you've seen it. It's kind of the big talk right now. We'll play this. Okay, so this is Disney. Do you know who this is, Cameron? I didn't know who she is.
I've worked with her, so I know her well.
Okay.
I developed a TV show with her a decade ago. So I'm not going to make any personal comments about her or her family and this stuff, but I can talk about the overall situation with Disney. But I know her.
Okay. So let's go ahead. I'll start playing this, what she says.
One transgender child, and one pansexual child, and also as a leader. And that was the thing that really got me, because I had heard so much from so many of my colleagues over the course of the last couple of weeks, in open forums and through emails and phone conversations. And I feel a responsibility to speak, not just for myself, but for them. to all of us. We had an open forum last week at 20th where, again, the home of really incredible, groundbreaking LGBTQIA stories over the years, where one of our execs stood up and said, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. And I realized, it actually is true. We have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads and narratives in which gay characters just get to be characters and not have to be about gay stories. And so that's been very eye-opening for me.
And she goes on as let me get this back to small. Yeah, like so people, I mean, there's already on Twitter hashtag boycott Disney, because she goes on to, I think, promise that she wants a minimum of 50% of characters to be LGBTQIA. I don't know what the I is now. I mean, letters just keep getting added.
Intersex, and I believe A is asexual.
Okay.
I mean, in a in a world that is made up, that might be the statistics, but that's not the reality of the world we live in.
And that's what I was going to get to, just because, for starters, and this was specifically, I think, dealing more with the children's Disney does mostly kids stuff, and that's what I was going to get at, Cameron. It's even beyond whether or not parents, and most parents still do not want that pushed on their children. And, parents have the right to believe that and not want that. Because it does kind of begin in, I don't know. Well, we won't go down the grooming path, but anyways.
I get you.
But yeah, parents, don't necessarily want that pushed in their stories. But as Natalie was saying, it's literally statistically way off to have 50%.
Because do either one of you know what is the about the the percentage?
Well, the percentages are the way the percentages are being represented is certainly changing. The way I'm phrasing it very carefully. I'm not the way it's being presented, because when I was younger, there was a gay population was considered to be 2% or less of the population. Then the numbers were presented as it's 10%. Every 1 in 10. Your neighbor's that. Now, certainly in this current generation of how children are being raised and taught in schools, I saw something like on TikTok. Just a teacher was very proudly saying how something like 20 out of her 35 preschool or not preschool, I guess elementary school children identified as LGBTQ, etc. And that's what, 60% of that class. So we're certainly getting a new presentation of the statistics for the next generation. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Yes, no, I get what you're saying. Well, and especially as you keep adding, it's
hold on. Can I just say, I guess that means we didn't know for all these years of previous human nature, about 50% of people were hiding that they are a part of the alphabet. The
interesting thing is, speaking of human condition, I'll speak from my own cultural thing, which will startle people. Obviously, I'm Muslim, and my culture is perceived, certainly in the West, as being very anti-gay, right? We throw them off of buildings, which we don't, but that's the perception, right? So, but here's interesting things. Intersex, which is hermaphrodites, is something that has been recorded through human history, right? As a biological, it's a mutation, right? A baby's born with both genitals, right? And it's a very small 0.02% of the population that is born intersex, right? And so, because it is part of the human condition historically, in Islam, we very quickly made it part of Islamic law that they were recognized. Intersex is recognized under Sharia, which is that. But the idea was that when a child is born as hermaphrodite, there were all kind of technical ways to check the physical characteristics and then assign the child as male or female based on the dominant genital characteristics. Because the presumption was the idea of creating a third sex was not what the culture was how it was going to handle that. It was going to say, we're going to judge your body based on your reproductive situation, and you're going to be either male or female, and that's what you are for the rest of your life. In Pakistan today, There is today in Pakistan, 2022, there is what are called hijras. Hijras are the intersex hermaphrodite community, and they're actually beloved in the community because when you have a wedding, you've got to invite the hijras. The hijras are part of the dance community. They're very much beloved in the society, and so when you have a wedding, you got to invite the hijras to dance. It's not a real wedding unless you get. And so that's coming from a very conservative culture that very early on decided, okay, this is how we're going to deal with deviations from the statistical norm of reproduction, right? And so that's several thousand years old. The phenomenon of classification that we're dealing with seems to be more of a 10-year-old phenomenon that we're dealing with in America and Europe right now. That is not how historically.
Yeah. That's my point, really. Yeah, you just laid it out pretty well there.
Yeah, it's well, and too, I think as you keep adding different letters, like say if you're doing a kindergarten class. Well, I mean, if you describe it asexual to a kindergartner, almost all of them may be that because they may not.
They all are. I mean,
yeah.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine. And he and I went to school together, and he called me, and he is a traditional Christian, but he's also in this environment, and he's sending children to public schools, and so he's like, and he wants to be a good, loving person. And so he told me, both of my sons, who are 8 and 11, I believe, have come out as various alphabet designations, right? And he's like, well, how do I deal with that? And I said, is that something, do you feel that you taught them? That when your 8-year-old child says they're asexual, is that something you taught them? He said, no, but it's something that's being raised. And I was like, so your teachers taught them these terms, right? And your 8-year-old child is not able to get an erection. So I don't know how he can even be thinking in terms of sexuality. What does that mean for him, right? Yeah. And so this is a lot of social, cultural conversation that children are being pulled into. Yes. Yeah. And it is normalized, and frankly, it is normalized in my industry. Again, I know Carrie. I'm not going to make any comments about her or her family situation. Zero. But I will say, I know quite a few screenwriters who are. A screenwriter friend of mine is like, well, my 12-year-old daughter is trans, and now she's my son. I'm like, okay, it's your family.
Well, and I hear,
but it's more and more a common thing now. Everyone's like, well, my kid is this. I never heard this one in the 80s. So that's just it's a moment in history.
Yes, yeah.
And,
well, and it's just kind of like you're saying, kind of what you're asking your friend. It's like that's why parents are so upset, obviously, with what we just watched and we heard from Disney, because there is that word that's being thrown around, grooming, because kids, as you said, don't think about that. Like they physically, that's not even a part of them yet.
They don't have the natural hormone creation to think in terms of sexuality. Right.
Exactly.
I remember when we were kids, the whole big thing was how shocking was, I'll show you mine, you'll show me yours. But we didn't know what that was. Right. I remember when I was in first grade and one of my classmates decided to show me hers and pull down her panties. I had no idea what I was looking at. I don't know what was going on. Right. She didn't know what she was doing either. She's just, a 7-year-old child playing and having fun. Right.
We're like, what kind of school is Cameron going to? I'm just kidding.
No one in this chat has ever had I'll show you mine, you'll show me yours when you're 7 years old. Come on. Kids kids don't know what this is, and this is fun to them. They don't even know what boys and girls are. And so to them,
yes. Yeah, and then yes, and that's why it's just like people are so, and rightfully so, outraged. And what I was going to get, where do you think this is going with Disney? Like when Disney tells you 50% of our characters are going to be like one of these groups, and they see that parents do not like this, do you think they're just like, forget them, and they're just going to shove it down all of our throats until people truly vote with their wallet? I mean, where do you think this is going?
Or they accept.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a Disney civil war that's very clearly happening, and I've indicated that. But now I think it's very clear in the sense of when Bob Chapek, the CEO, put out a memo addressing this issue, saying that he wasn't going to get the company involved in the politics of the sex ed bill in Florida and whatever. And he laid out all perfectly rational reasons, and he said things that should not be dared said aloud, that we donate money to all politicians because we need to in Florida. He laid out all the practical business reasons, right? And then there was this massive uproar because he didn't immediately surrender to this point of view, right? And was actually trying to pull. And remember, his boss, new Disney chairman, Susan Arnold, is lesbian, very openly. She's LGBTQ. So, and he could not have put that memo out or put the company on we're going to get out of this discussion position unless she told him to. She's his boss, right? And since she's a member of the community that's certainly been talking about this in particular, he would have run this. Is this what Disney's going to do? He's not going to get to do this without her approving it. So this is coming from her, a member of the community, right? Who is a very powerful businesswoman who wants to make money. And so this is her, he's her disciple. She's the emperor, he's Vader, right? I've used that analogy. And so she told him, we need to pull the company out of this discussion, right? Even as a member of the community, I don't want the company involved in this anymore. Iger pulled us into this crap, we're pulling out. Of course, but what Mr. Iger did was he filled the company with people that shared a political agenda. That Disney was always a bunch of, since I worked there, it was always a bunch of Machiavellian people ruthlessly competing for power. I witnessed it, right? But then on top of that has been added, people with personal ideologies, now Machiavellian ruthlessly competing for power. So you added this element to it, the Iger added to it, right? So we are seeing a civil war at Disney. Now, what happened with Mr. Chapek is that he initially tried to do this, what his boss had told him to do, pull the company out of this. But, it's like Godfather 3. They pull me back in, like they won't let him go, because this is the big drama, because this particular topic has become the drama within the industry, the trades. Remember, this is all internal stuff now. We're not talking about the audience, the customer. We're talking about internally here, the drama of the trades are creating, which are portraying his stance as anti-gay, right? And so to get the company to a place of getting out of politics on these, it was portrayed as because where we are right now is the current activists say that if you are either with us or you are our enemy, like a Sith, right? So either you are on board with this, or even if you keep your mouth shut, you are the enemy, right? So
yeah,
their stance. So what he decided, and I know this came from the board because everything that's happening now is coming from the board. The board got the PR backlash and saw particularly Deadline, which represents what I call the club, which is the traditional Hollywood power structure that is cracking. And we'll get to Mr. Smith because he's part of the club. The whole thing's collapsing. But Deadline represents the club, right? So the Deadline has been wanting to get Iger out, Mr. Chapek out for a year, ever since he started cleaning house at Disney and getting rid of the traditional club people, right, in Disney, or putting them under control. So Deadline has been lobbying to remove him for a year. That trade has been the voice of those people that don't like this guy coming in and messing with their cocktail party buddies, right? And so now they got their thing that they knew is the emotional hot button within the industry. And so then they start pushing. And so at this point, Chapek's like, all right, they're gunning for my job. How do I handle this? And at a point, the board said, this is not going to stop. This is not going to stop until we do a complete 180 or appear to. So my opinion of what is happening here, based on actual, not just Cameron making stuff up, it's based on what he's done in the past. Remember last year when Mr. Chapek was in conflict with Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige had publicly expressed anger that Bob Chapek had intentionally taken control of Black Widow's distribution from his hands. Feige wanted to do a solely theatrical release, and Chapek said, no, we're going to simultaneously put it on Disney Plus. And at that point, then Mr. Feige convinced his protege, or at least someone he thought was his protege, Scarlett Johansson, who's a huge movie star, to sue Disney, which is unheard of. Because no phone call would have resolved it, right? I'm not getting the money I would have gotten had it just been a solely theatrical release. At the time, I said this, and it turned out to be exactly what happened. So I will rest on my laurels on this because I tend to be able to predict this man, because Mr. Chapek is a very Machiavellian guy, and I'm kind of a Machiavellian guy, or at least I know how it works, right? And so I'm like, all right, I understand the thinking. So what does Chapek do when he was facing a mini PR storm? The mini PR storm is that Kevin Feige, the beloved leader of Marvel, is against the boss publicly, and then the biggest movie star in the world, Scarlett Johansson, female movie actress, she's publicly suing them. That was the big PR drama he was facing, and people said he's going to be fired over this at the time. I said, no, this is what he's going to do. He's going to judo this. He's going, judo, the way judo works is you take the energy of your opponent and flip it. Right?
Yes.
You take the energy and they're on their back, right? It's literally using leverage of their energy. You're not doing anything, right? So you're like, okay, come at me, and I'll just use you to destroy yourself. So that's what so he's like, oh, I'm going to judo this. He immediately, and this is what I predicted he would do. I said that Mr. Chapek, if he's smart, what he'll do is not fight Scarlett Johansson, not fight Kevin Feige, but give them what they want. And so he said, you're right. The next movie that's coming out is Shang-Chi. We're going to do what Kevin Feige wanted. We're only going to put it out theatrically. And let's see what happens. And so, as I predicted, that movie made $100 million less without the extra revenue from streaming. Okay.
Mm.
So the moment that number came out, which is after the first weekend, people knew it wasn't going to match Black Widow's revenues. I said it was going to happen. It happened. Within 1 week, Scarlett Johansson had settled a lawsuit. Within 1 week. Because the numbers were not going to, she wanted to be able to win this in court.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, you made more money than Shang-Chi did. And they did the strategy you said was going to give you more money. What are you talking about? So he gave them what they wanted, and they ended up falling flat on their back. And now that was what he proved he would do. I predicted he would do it, and he did do it, and he won. And Kevin Feige publicly came out and said, I underestimated him. He actually said that in an interview. I underestimated Bob Chapek because he had made Kevin Feige look like a fool, right? Because like, Kevin, yeah, you're right. You're smarter than me. Let's do what you want. Oh, it didn't work. Shut up now. All right, get out. And, right? And Kevin Feige has shut up since then. So now this is the biggest PR crisis. This is the bigger PR because again, the trades were trying to get him out last year. It's like, so, Scarlett Johansson is suing him. What an incompetent leader. Let's fire him, right? And he survived it. Now the trade's like, he is taking an immoral stance on LGBTQ issues, right? Let's fire him. And so what is he doing? You're right. I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to go all the way. Let's start putting these characters in there. Let's have Carrie Burke, my friend, go out there and say all these things, right? I'm sure she's speaking from the heart, but it certainly fits a corporate. I'm sure it fits a corporate strategy that he would approve. He's like, yeah, Carrie, go do that. She's speaking from her personal experience. Yeah, you do that. In fact, more of you guys do that. Everybody, Ron DeSantis, tell everybody how wrong we were and how you're going to screw us up in Florida and we're going to lose lots of money. Let everyone see what happens. Let the investors see what happens if we actually do what you want us to do. And guess what? The reaction is exactly, he's like, what he warned in his memo would happen if we didn't get out of this. He's like, okay, you want this? Here, you want the zoo? Let's have a zoo. Oh, stock price is falling? Not my fault. I did what you wanted. Maybe we shouldn't do this anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hope that's where it goes because it's just, I don't know, the reactions they're getting today from that video, that's where it's truly baffling that, I mean, I would really love to know the percentage of parents who are like, yes, let's just like teach my kids this at very young ages. Let's kind of push all these things on them.
In Hollywood, it's 80%. In Hollywood, it's 80%. All of my colleagues believe this is exactly right. They like they'll share with me their stories of their child wants to transition. I'm like, okay, not my family. I'm just gonna listen. Not my family, it's your family. I'm just listen. I'm just gonna listen, right?
Then I guess
that have the value system, which is not where the majority of America or the consumers are. Realistically.
Yes, and it's like there's got to come a point where the money people, like you're saying, they know where the money is going, what the people do not want their money going towards, and that's where I think it really may come down to, will people actually vote with their wallets? Like when
I believe they will. I mean, I'm already seeing it. I mean, look, I'm seeing people, friends of mine who are liberal gay people, saying this has gone too far, man. It's embarrassing. And my neighbors are like, I'm kind of embarrassed by this crap, right? This isn't. I mean, I knew I was gay when I was 6 years old, but I didn't need to talk to my teacher about it, right? I didn't need my teacher to talk to us about it then, right? Whatever. I'm just telling you what they've said to me, and there's others I'm sure who disagree. But it's getting to a point where mainstream people within the LGBTQ community are kind of like, I don't know about this activism, about this. Is this going to bring us the kind of attention we want? We wanted acceptance. I've warned for some time. I've been watching this where some of the activists have been pushing. I'm like, this is going to cause a pendulum swing the other way. People were like, I'm already seeing it. People are like, why do gay people need to get married again? And it's swinging back. It's swinging back.
You made a good point, because Hollywood, I think, like we really have been at a point where we've like everyone accepts. And when I say everyone, the vast majority accept kind of live and let live situation.
That wasn't true when I was in the 80s. There really was open homophobia, and you could beat up a gay person and get away with it. You really can't today in 2022. Most people don't. Most religious Christians don't want that. When I was young, religious people kind of looked away from abuse of gay people. That's not really true anymore. So culture has been changed. But now, is there need for another step? And is that step going to force the step to go back?
Yes, exactly.
Well,
like
well,
when
and I
you
thi-
keep pushing, like once we've already embraced acceptance and you want to then push further, that's when people are like, no, no, no,
sometimes
no.
people, I think it kind of, or at least it makes me go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why are they pushing this so hard?
Exactly.
What,
and
you know?
and gay friends of mine are like, you know what, I don't really feel the need to convince anybody else or children to, just like people are going to be what they are. We don't need to. That's what they've said. Okay, again, I'm not.
Yes.
And that's what I was
Yes,
gonna
yeah.
say. In fairness, I don't. It's not just LGBTQ. Like, I don't know why in young classrooms, especially, why are you talking about like any sexuality in the classroom?
Yes, exactly.
Like, so I'm just saying, it's not even like against. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's like kids. I mean,
talk about it like
kids yes, even in the current environment with everything available on YouTube, 7, 8-year-old kids don't really understand this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And for the most part, and there's a beauty to innocence of
Yes,
of
yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
child and
yeah.
playing, and none of that energy, is activated. That'll
Like,
get
why would
activated
you
soon
even
enough.
think
4 or
about
5 years, they'll be activated. The puberty will hit. But
Yes.
there's beauty to childhood innocence that we're losing. And again, part of the innocence,
Yeah.
they don't know what anything is. You tell them, they're like, okay, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to get to this. Thank you, Mr. Buckcrack Media, with the
Thank you very
$5
much.
super chat. Hello to the lovely ladies of Force Supply Entertainment, and a big hello
There you
to
go.
Kamran Pasha. Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so we'll see. We'll see. As we're saying, Cameron, will the money people win out, or
the end result is you're already seeing it. I mean, people are going to vote for their wallets. We're already seeing it. This, while there's fake Twitter outrage, I do sense that there is this situation the activists are pushing Disney into is driving away consumers. I do believe that. I don't believe this is just loudmouths on Twitter. Loudmouths on Twitter generally are people that are not invested in the thing they're talking about. People are invested in their kids. They're invested in the kids' upbringing. They're going to start walking away. In fact, the worst, and Chapek's like, but he's got cover. He's like, I told you in a memo, this is not what I wanted to do. All right, you're all going to put a gun to my head. See what you get now.
yeah, it's something. And thank you, Stephanie, for the $4.99 super chat.
Thank you.
Here's a few shekels. The thing is, these people didn't read the law. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Have you seen some of those actors getting so angry or at the Oscars?
Well,
gay.
It was like literally
And-
like a chant.
Yeah.
Like and it was like, is this supposed to be fun?
And it's just like, how dumb are you to get up and chant that when you clearly, as Stephanie pointed out, have not read the law?
Nobody reads anything here in this town. I mean, look, and nobody knows what they're talking about. Everyone, when Tibet was cool, free Tibet. Oh, we want to make some money from China? Forget Tibet, right? Oh, we don't care about China anymore. Free Tibet. I mean, it's robotic, right? I mean, it's like that meme of the non-player character. I mean, that's what these guys are, right? So,
Like, I don't think it means what you think it means. Like truly the case of this.
I will say one thing, and I won't say this because I have a good friend of mine who is LGBTQ. He's a member of my Patreon, and he made this point of the Patreon, and I want to express this on his behalf. He did say, look, the current bill does not have any of the things that are being said. However, the history of the bill, where certain supporters and proponents of the bill did put in things in early drafts that were meant to, like if a child said, I think I'm gay, the teacher would have to report that to the parent. That's not appropriate. I mean, and so that was removed. Ultimately, those amendments were removed. But he said there are ugly things that were people behind this bill tried to put in. So to be fair, let's put that out there. That may not be in the current bill now. So people who are upset about that kind of stuff have a reason to say that wasn't right. And maybe your agenda behind this is a little uglier than the bland face of the bill. I just want to put that out there because I think it's fair to say that, at least because he said it.
Okay.
And I'll put that out.
Yeah, it regardless though, it's just like these people have clearly not read the bill at all. But I wanted to get into, since we have you, the Oscars. I'm not going to pull up the. I'm tired
of the slap. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing it.
I'm not going to pull up the slap. I text Natalie and I was like, I wonder what Adam Sandler texts Chris Rock and all of his friends text him, because they had to. But
the text that came was from Dave Chappelle saying, "I got your back, brother. We're gonna have some fun with it." Chapelle's gonna have some fun. It's coming.
Well, I saw this because I thought this was his way of showing support. Can't wait
Mhm.
for this. Love you, buddy. And
Oh, yeah.
of course, the tour is selling out now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because of
he's
this
fair.
laugh.
Chris Rock has been a great member of the comic community, but in the recent years he's been a little overshadowed by Dave Chappelle, who's an incredible comedian. I think he's not going to be competing directly with Chappelle for attention because they both tell a very similar kind of comedy, which is social commentary, right?
Yes.
But this is going to boost his career, and deservedly so. He's a
Yeah.
wonderful comedian.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
Definitely.
Silver linings.
Oh, it's definitely a silver lining. And this one got me too, because we even on our little episode or little video on it brought up, of course, her condition. And I just had a feeling it's like, I doubt he knew it. And someone brought that up and he said, because comedians don't have a medical chart for everyone in the audience, David Spade.
Right.
And it's just like, exactly.
I mean, I watched it. It was a clearly off the cuff joke. You know,
Yeah.
she's sitting there and she's, look, I will say this, whatever one may think of her personality, she's a very lovely woman, and even with shaved head, she's quite a lovely woman, right? And so he was just teasing her. And part of the fun of, and it's intentional. And I think actually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote an op-ed about this that was very, very impactful. And he said part of the purpose that you have comedians poke at the rich and famous at the Oscars is to humanize them, because these are multimillionaires who don't live like normal people, and the audience of normal people is watching them. So you got to humanize them. You got to bring them down a notch. Otherwise, people don't identify. It's on purpose that there's these little niggling jokes, right? It's on purpose, right? And he just threw one out. He made up on the cuff, and Mr. Smith laughed. And then I guess he saw the icy stare from his wife, and they have a very complex relationship. Let's put it that way. But the other aspect of it is, and I've said this, and not everyone agreed when I said this. I said this on my Patreon. He's an actor, so he went to acting mode. I've got to act like the angry husband. He was in that. I mean, he gets up there. It's all because I work with actors. They're always acting. They're always like, well, how is it my audience going to react to this? I've got my persona, right? So he gets up and does the persona of, I'm a man, and that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go.
So what do you think? Okay, so what do you think? We all know Chris Rock's career was just helped. Like, he's just going to make more money and get like we just said, it's going to be helped.
And as he should, because it's kind of crazy for both of them. It's like people pointed out this. I mean, maybe it'll go away, but it will be like synonymous forever with both of their names. Like this.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the rest of their lives. Like, it's, I mean, it's not Chris Rock's fault. Well, I mean, some might argue that, but I don't agree.
Yeah, he told a joke. I mean, it was a
highly
joke.
doubt he was thinking, oh, she has alopecia.
No, he wasn't thinking, let me be mean to someone suffering from a medical condition. You could tell it on his face. He's just like, you got a bald head, you're looking sexy, I'm going to make a little bit of fun of you because you're famous, and that's what I'm here to do, make fun of the famous people, right? Whatever. I will say this, if your question is what's going to happen to Will Smith, and I'm going to go all the way out there, I think his career is finished. I really do.
You really go that far? Like, you think it's finished?
Because I'm watching the screenwriter boards. Right when this happened, I mean, all the screenwriter boards were writers, and some of them very famous writers are all talking about their personal opinions on these private boards, and I'm on those boards. Really prominent people were very, very, very angry and disgusted, and it didn't go away. It's not like it was over. It's still the topic of conversation on these boards today. I'll show you. Remember I said the Deadline was the sort of spokes magazine for the club of the Hollywood cool crowd, right? So right after this incident happened, Mike Fleming, who's one of the writers for Deadline, he put out his commentary immediately. Because they're representing what they think the cool kids want, right? So he put out commentary saying he supported Will Smith and he defended his wife and from a degrading joke and all of that. 48 hours later, Mike Fleming put out a personal apology on Deadline saying he was wrong to have taken that position. And he said, I'm ashamed. He said, I was swept away by the emotion of it. What happened in those 48 hours was Deadline editorial board getting enough feedback from the club that we're not on board with this. And so suddenly like, oh crap, our the people we're backing don't like what we said. So they're reversing themselves. And so when Deadline is no longer supporting him, he's in serious trouble. Okay,
well, you bring up something that's interesting that you say that, because what is coming out today, you literally had, and not that I agree with Jim Carrey very often, You had Jim Carrey really take Will Smith to task.
I like Jim Carrey though.
Well, I mean, I like him as an actor.
Each their own. Each their own.
Yes, but
he has interesting perspective sometimes.
He would, I mean, he took him to task of how like how horrifying it was, like that shouldn't have happened. And then
I heard that.
And then I may be able to find the video, but then also all the three women who hosted have all come out publicly and said I was horrified. Like they use the word horrified. So they're really beginning to condemn this today.
And the latest thing on Deadline today was that now the Academy is at least talking about suspending or expelling Will from the Academy, right? They were trying to make this go away and hope it would go away. It's not going away because not just the uproar of the public, it's the uproar internally within the system because he ruined their night. Right? Yes. He ruined their night. And I'm going to make a comment that Malcolm X would have made because Malcolm X was very blunt about these kinds of things. He's my hero. And he would have said, so basically, he would have said the Oscars are a dog and pony show set up by the master, right? And you've got the minstrels, the slaves serving as minstrels, he's got the master's got all of his buddies there to enjoy the slaves put on the minstrel show, and then one of the slaves goes off script and starts a fist fight with the other minstrels, right? That embarrassed the master with the other. It was bad form, and it ruined the night for the master. Master's not going to put up with that. You're going to be back out on the field, kid. We brought you in the house. That's how Malcolm X would phrase that, right? And he was in the 60s, he talked very openly that the greatest threat to the black community was black on black violence. And he said liberals don't want to talk about it. I mean, Malcolm X said that. He said liberals don't want to talk about it, but the violence of us against each other give the power structure power over us, right? Yeah. And so he would have said, that's what I warned you about. They're laughing at you, and then they're going to kick you off stage now for embarrassing them.
Well, and you had brought up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He had a good piece that I read talking about it. And he was saying you just showed, he was specifically talking to the African-American community. He's like, you just showed all those little boys, if you have a small dispute with someone, like you smack them. And
and also you smack the little guy. Had he gone up to Dave Chappelle, Chappelle's actually working out. He's in really good shape. Chappelle, even we're not in good shape, Chappelle would have punched him in the face because Chappelle's an old school DC guy. He's old school Washington DC.
I could see that.
Punch him in the face and continue to skit. He would punch him in the face, continue to skit, and made even more fun of Jada. Right? He would have done it. But he picked on Chris Rock. Chris Rock is half his size. Is his little guy. And it's bullying. It's like, you slap this guy around. You try that with Chappelle and see what would happen. You'd be in the hospital. And not only that, Chappelle's crew, which if you ever see the people, Chappelle's bodyguards, I mean, they'd break his legs. I mean, they don't mess with him. So he went with a guy that he knew didn't have that kind of entourage.
Yeah, and Chris Rock, Chris Rock, he was just so, I think, caught off guard. Like, I really don't think he knew why he was walking up to him, because he's smiling.
He's just kind of like, oh, okay. Oh.
So what he thought was going to happen was he's going to come up and make a funny comment, and they were going to blow it over. Right?
Yes.
And the correct thing, if he felt obligated to handle this minor joke that way, the correct thing to get up there, and Chris Rock was welcoming. He was smiling. He was, we're going to have a fun, unscripted moment here. My friend's going to say something funny. Take the thing and say, Chris, I just want to let you say, this is what I would have said. I said, Chris, I just want to say, my wife, Jada, is the most beautiful woman in the world. I just want to let you know, she's got a medical condition. So that was a bit of a hurtful thing for you to say. I hope you'll apologize. And hand him back the thing. And Chris Rock, being the gentleman, he said, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Love you, Jada. Let's get back to the show. And that would have been it. And they would have both looked great. And that was what Chris Rock thought was about to happen.
Yes, yeah.
Instead, he got smacked.
He said, oh, wow.
And the people like at stage, I'm like, I'm going to be frank here. I love Chris Rock as a comic, but he ain't a good actor. So that was real. There was no acting there. He was flubbering his lines. And when he was being cursed at, he was so flustered. He's like, all right, I won't use her name. And that was coming from an authentic place of, I got to shut this down now. Right?
Yes.
That wasn't a scripted moment in any way, shape, or form.
Like, he was flustered. Yeah, because who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
But I know the moment, like, you kind of see it. I've seen the videos enough seen the video enough.
Honestly, the first time I saw it that night,
I hear it.
I felt sick. I was with a good friend of mine who's a director, Middle Eastern guy, and we were both like, this is from the devil. We felt it. This was devilish. It was an ugly energy. We're like, shut this off, right?
Yeah.
It felt ugly and evil. and that's what penetrated people. It felt wrong.
Well, and I mean,
Yeah.
just the way he screamed at him was so violent.
It
was
repeats
just
twice.
yeah, and that's where like
you're on live television, you're cursing
God.
twice. It was literally out of control. So I was like, dude, and what it is just sublimated anger towards his own personal family issues with his wife. He ain't gonna slap her around for banging his son's best friend or whatever, but he'll so.
Yes.
And that's what it's like. I do think we all have to, as much as like, yes, he was so in the wrong. It's like, I try and look at both sides, and it's like the guy clearly, and I'm not saying this trying to, like, he clearly is going through something.
Yeah,
he clearly was
took
just
it out
like,
on Chris Rock.
Something just, probably years of aggression or pent up things, just kind of.
She just went on her podcast. We're doing a podcast here. She was on a podcast talking about having an affair with her teenage son's friend.
Yeah.
And then make him confront that. I mean, this isn't normal behavior, even by Hollywood standards. This is crazy stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, they've made their personal life a circus, but it's gotten beyond a circus. It's gotten to the place where it's actually like, before this slap thing, it's really like, man, I don't want to watch this guy be humiliated by his wife on a podcast, man, where she's talking about affair. This is kind of ugly. Their whole relationship is this disgusting place. It's not like voyeurism anymore. It's like, man, I don't want to see this no more.
Yeah.
And Will Smith, it's like, if even there's like this picture I saw in something, I screenshotted it, but like of Bradley Cooper kind of embracing him, and like you look in Will Smith's face, and he just looks so broken.
Yeah,
and
because
like,
he lost it. All that pent up crap came out, and he realized in that moment, I've blown it. I've blown my life. He knew at that moment that he'd blown his career and he'd blown his life. He knew it. As a screenwriter said to me, this is the most carefully constructed persona in Hollywood. He spent 13 years creating the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, your buddy, the good action star, the good-hearted guy. He's so good that he lets his wife bang other dudes and he's cool with it. Right? That's how cool he is, right? Okay.
Oh God.
And that's not who he actually is.
I'm not a regular husband. I'm a cool husband.
I'm a cool husband. So I actually want to, if I may, I'm going to, without naming the person, I'm going to read you a comment that was made by a very well-known screenwriter on one of these boards, and hopefully they won't watch this, but I'm not naming who they are. But this was a comment they made. So their agents had tried to, a few weeks ago, tried to give one of their scripts to Will Smith, and he declined. And this is a comment he made on Oscar night. So I'm just going to read that from one of these boards. He said, I said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I have nothing against Will Smith personally, but everything I've heard about him and all the stories I know suggest that he has reached the point in his celebrity where his own preferences have taken on moral force. If he doesn't like something, it is morally wrong. If he doesn't like something in a script, it should never have been written ever. He is a big star, but I just don't want to deal with that. Guess who looked prescient today? So that's from a top screenwriter who declined the chance to work with Will Smith, because that's the persona that we experienced behind the scenes that the world got to see.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting.
Almost like it's almost like everybody's shocked, but even Hollywood's like, you aren't supposed to show that. Yeah, like no,
that's
like but don't show it. Like
there's two things. Hollywood and DC are the same things. So when I knew President George Bush was over, when people started saying, this guy's not in charge, Cheney's in charge. You don't reveal that. You don't reveal the old man behind the curtain. That's how politics works. All politicians are actors who are controlled by somebody else. That's what a politician is by definition. But American people like to believe their leaders are JFK. He's like, JFK is like, I'm in charge. Oh yeah, they took care of that. Nixon's like, I'm in charge. They took care of that, right? So, after that, Carter's like, I'm not in charge. Okay. They all stop, right? And so, but they don't say that publicly, right?
Yeah.
And so the same thing with this is, you don't reveal the truth behind the curtain. That's why I believe Will Smith is finished, because he revealed to the world that we have two faces in this industry. You're not supposed to reveal that.
he bit the hand that fed him all these years.
Yeah, he did. Let me read this really quick. Stephanie, thank you. She said, YouTube, Bob Hope, Oscars. He did that all the time. Speaking of how they would roast the people. Oh yeah, comedians like today.
Rickles was infamous for that.
Well, even like that's why Chris Rock, even when he says, "Oh, come on, that was my." Does he say that's Miles?
Or he's like, I didn't think that was.
That's G.I. Jane over G.I. Jane joke, right?
Yeah.
And then the expletive started, and Chris was like, okay, this guy's out of his mind. I gotta shut this down now. And literally, at first he thought it was like, wait, what's happening here? This was just a GI. That's all. He didn't say I made a joke about your wife's sickness. He said I made a joke about GI Jane, a meeting.
Yeah. Like I genuinely don't get it. Like, why are you so upset with me?
And then the expletive started, and he said it twice. And then Chris Rock's like, I gotta shut this down. This is on global television right now. I'm gonna swallow this and move on.
Yeah.
And he was the real MVP, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and and even besides that, I think that's why even there's some memes that are pretty funny. It's like the Babylon Bee was like Amy Schumer now scared, realizing people can smack her for jokes they don't like.
Right. I mean, it should kind of scare people a little bit.
But comedians are scared right now, because before it was threatening to their careers to make jokes, right? Like, Chappelle broke that taboo when he successfully made jokes not about the trans community. As he said, he made jokes about white people and how they use trans for other agendas, right? That was his joke, and that's too close to the truth, right? So, but he broke the fear they had, and he survived the maelstrom. But one of the most horrifying tweets I saw the next day, because I saw Dave Chappelle trending the next day, and I was predicting Chappelle's going to come out and say something, right? Which so far I don't believe he has. But so I was like, he must have said something cool. Go there, and it was trending not for that reason. It was trending because one sort of trans extremist activist put out a tweet saying, "Chappelle, you're next. We're going to be punching you now, right?" And it had like over 100,000 likes. So it's like people are threatening Chappelle physically, right? And they will try, but like I said, if anyone gets on stage with Chappelle, his security will kill them. And that's what these idiots don't understand, right? So they will not walk off that stage.
Oh gosh, yeah, that is. But yeah, I it's interesting you say that about Will Smith, because on one side of things, I was like, well, he's so big, maybe Hollywood just sweeps it on the rug. But on the other side, there is a line to be crossed that once you cross, no one can come back from.
And can I say,
and that felt like it.
I had almost like touching on something you said a minute ago. Like I had the thought today, and tell me if this is too out there or deep. Like sometimes I do that with my brain.
I like when you go to Natalie, let's do it.
He's feeling it.
He's like, let's go there, sister. But it was almost like even symbolic, almost like, there has been such an attack on comedians. It's like, I'm going to almost like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a mental image of kind of like they've been under persecution. Like, don't.
Well, because what it reveals is where culture is right now, because comedians are always threatened by tyrants are threatened by comedians, right? In every culture, whenever you look at anything, you could do anything Saddam was saying except make a joke about him. You made a joke about it, and then you're done. You just vanish, right? And so that's because the greatest thing of any kind of tyrant fears is humor belittles them. It brings us down to earth, which is the purpose of humor. And a tyrant who's so insecure about being made human and having a weakness shown will react. But so we are in a tyrannical culture right now, the cancel culture, the woke culture, that is terrified that comedians will point out, as Dave Chappelle said, he said, it's the greatest line in his special. He said, anyone who knows me, who's watched my comedy knows I don't have a problem with trans people. I got a problem with white people. And I got a problem with white people. Suddenly, whenever I criticize them, a white man is like, I'm a woman now. You can't say nothing to me, right? So that's the critique. Right? He's critiquing like, you're utilizing trans to cover something else, which is your agenda, right? Which is not about trans. But that, for those who actually are utilizing this other community for a power switch to advance themselves. I'm no longer the oppressor white male. I'm now the oppressor white female, right? Okay, or the oppressed trans female. So the people who actually are using a power switch get real threatened when someone points out that's what's going on here. And comedy is the only way to do it. So they had to go after.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because
comedy is the culmination of this tyrannical culture that fears comedians.
Exactly, because comedians, like when done, effectively, there is a power in being able to tell truth and make people laugh at the same time. It's kind of like a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. So they have this ability to really speak truth, but make it lighthearted for everybody, and there's a power in that.
Well, and I mean, all good comedy has truth in it. That's why we're laughing, because it hit on something that we're like, we see that.
Truth is always ridiculous. God has a sense of humor, right? I'm a Sufi, which is an Islamic mystic, and we tell spiritual truths through jokes. And it's done on purpose because the punchline reveals the spiritual wisdom. So like the Japanese Zen Zen koans, which are these weird puzzles for your mind, we use jokes. We use spiritual jokes, right? And they're very funny. But this is where we are at this moment. But it's also, to me, both the end of Will Smith's career, unfortunately, and the beginning of the change of acceptance of this garbage. People are coming to the defense of comedy for this purpose again.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
Well, and I hope so, because too, I mean, it feels split. Half the people are like, he should have smacked him harder.
I don't think it's half. I think it's 80-20. I think on Twitter it's half, but Twitter is as James does it, Twitter is the real world. It's not a real place, so that doesn't reflect reality. I think it's 80-20. Right. My Patreon reflects reality, and I've had about an 80-20 split in that direction on my Patreon. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, that I would say that's true, and it does. It's like people do need to realize, like, yeah, I hope it wakes people up. Like this is going too far.
Hopefully, start a conversation for good, and
yeah.
All of this can do, and so the industry had to reach a place of complete collapse before it could start recessing. So we're at the place of complete collapse. The Oscars, which were the Tiffany moment of the industry, right? The moment where everyone gets, because like some people said, at the Video Music Awards, at the MTV Video Music Awards, it's expected you're going to be trashy, fist fights, people flashing, people sticking their tongue out or shaking the booty. It's expected that you're going to be trashy at the VMAs. You're not trashy here.
I think that's the thing too.
Courtney Love comes dressed like an elegant queen, right?
Yes, yeah. This, I mean, the Oscars is
because in my mind, always for a long time, that is the fanciest, that is the most formal award show, like the Oscars.
Yeah.
Yes,
and that's been ruined, and this is going to hang over the Oscars for a while. And they know that, and that's why even the Academy is now panicking, right? Because those who think this was orchestrated, now this isn't the kind of attention they want. This isn't the kind of stunt that they want. This is because it degraded their brand, right?
It did, yeah. You're right.
So the industry is we're at the collapse state because the industry is now, the Oscars themselves, the last aspect of glamour. And many of us, when we were younger, enjoyed these shows. The last few years, they have been fun. They were fun. And we don't watch them. I didn't even watch it. I saw this on YouTube when the incident happened. I heard someone sent me an alert, and I went to YouTube and saw it. And now we're seeing what's happening with Disney and everything else. The whole system with Disney, where you saw somebody actually trying to put the company back to profitability, and the internal Hollywood system is not letting them do it, right? So the system is literally past the point of collapse now.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it is interesting too that these things came out back-to-back days. You get the Will Smith slap that gets no one cared about the Oscars at this point, but it got everyone talking about, wow, man, they're really all crazy out there.
They didn't talk about, I have to watch the Oscars next year. People are like, I got to run away from this thing.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted.
Yes, and then you get the Disney thing right after that, and it's just, I feel like to the average American that we're just like, wow, they're crazy. Like they're really crazy.
Like they're losing their mind.
Yeah. Like they've lost their minds, and which is not what Hollywood should be wanting. It's just dude,
it's not a great look for most people.
No, you saw these example. Hollywood can't stand being laughed at.
Yes,
at this point, we're becoming a joke.
Clearly.
Before people were angry. People didn't understand. That's not how you fight Hollywood. Oh, I'm going to protest and do a Twitter thing, and I'm going to have this guy make this big rant on YouTube about Hollywood. That's not how you get Hollywood. You laugh at them, and they collapse. Yeah. And that's the process is beginning now. It's actually become a joke.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And then I think especially as we kind of get more even, I think it's good that we have more alternatives beginning to start, and maybe even just more smaller independent films that begin to give us options. But I hope, you just think at some point, surely business sense will kick in.
And if it doesn't, then gravity sets in, economics kicks in, right? And so if Disney continues down this path that Chapek tried to get it off of, the share price will collapse, and it won't be able to raise debt because it won't have the economic standing to do that, and it will start breaking apart. Just practical economics. Chapek is trying to prevent that from happening, but they're not letting him. So it's like, all right, let me show you what happens if we do what you want. You guys want to stop now? You guys want to stop now? I think he's going to let this play out this quarter, and then there's going to be a lot of talk, because I'm saying not all the investors, most of the investors are on board with making money. Not all of them are. One of the most powerful investment funds that's invested in Disney is BlackRock. and
Yeah.
BlackRock.
Yeah.
It's run by a guy who's a basically communist ideologue. He's taking all these people's money and saying publicly, I'm using this to transform the world, not to make my investors money. I'm using their money to change the world based on my vision. He's a crazy guy, and he's a multi-billionaire, but he's using other people's money, and he's one of the big investors in Disney. So that guy has to be like, at some point, he has to lose enough money that his investors go, hey man, can we just shut up about this stuff? I want to actually make a profit on my stocks.
Yeah, well, and hopefully that happens soon. JS Pena, if you're talking about the Florida bill, I don't use Google. You use like DuckDuckGo and just
well, even DuckDuckGo now is censoring. So there's the newest thing. The newest thing is the Brave browser, which I downloaded. DuckDuckGo is now announced it will be censoring things it feels are medically incorrect and other things like that. So.
Gotcha. Okay, I gotcha. So what did you say you used? What's the new one?
It's called the Brave browser. The Brave browser.
The Brave.
In about 6 months, they'll also capitulate. So you just got to keep switching browser.
You just got to keep finding the new one. That is, yes.
And because this is like a virus. It's like this woke thing. It's a disease. It keeps spreading.
It is. Well, thank you so much, Kamran, for coming on again.
Yes.
And you always have interesting insights.
Always a pleasure.
Yes. And
I'm going to take a bit of a break from YouTube because the month of Ramadan begins this weekend. So I'm going to be fasting and doing spiritual work for the next month. But hopefully I'll be able to come back on, May, June this summer and see you ladies again. It would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Who knows what will have happened in Hollywood by then?
Yes.
Buy gold and silver. Don't buy Disney stock right now.
And Kamran, do you want to tell that? Let me actually read this first. JS Pena, $4.99. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone's simping for Jada, but from what I've learned recently, I don't think she's I don't think she's a good person either.
I think you're not the only person that would think that.
Yeah, definitely not.
I think her persona, she don't hide who she is. So you can judge it any way you want. It's pretty much out there.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Will was hiding who he was. She wasn't.
Yes, that's true. Well, Kamran, why don't you tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, especially because I'm going to be off of YouTube. I know I saw some lovely comments. People like seeing me on YouTube. I'm going to be off of YouTube for at the very least a few weeks. So the best way to reach me is my Patreon, which I'll throw in a link before I take off, where I'm having all these kinds of discussions. And now it's become a real lively community where people are talking about it. We have Disney employees who are members of my Patreon who are leaking like internal memos and things. So I'm getting some really interesting insights that we're sharing there. So please come join us. It ain't that expensive. And hopefully it's a chance for you to connect with me directly. So I'll drop a link.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Again, we always enjoy it. Always have a lively conversation, and
be on here.
You enjoy your little YouTube break, and we'll see you on the other side of that. And everyone, thank you, all you guests. Thank you for watching.
For stopping by.
Yes. Thank you for watching. And
hit the like button, people, and subscribe here.
Yes. Let's definitely do that.
I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego.
And thanks for stopping by.
But mainly, stay classy.
But yes, thank you everyone for watching, and you guys can catch us next week. And that is it for the show. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right, bye.